also joined in a community of worship. One God.
الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. This, inshallah, will be the most important khutbah I've ever delivered so far, so please pay attention, special attention this time. I will try to repeat the important points, and I want you to bear in mind that I'm talking to you. You. Don't say he's talking to somebody else. Recently, I have come to a very important conclusion about believing in God. And this started in the Muslim Perspective issue of February 1987 with the title, Satan Believes in God. It dawned on me that throughout the Quran we are taught that the majority of believers in God are going to hell. In Surah 12, verse 103, says, most people, no matter what you do, will not believe. And then in 106, we're told that the majority of those who believe will go to hell. This is in Surah 12, verse 106. And then we read in Surah Al-Mu'minun, number 23, verses 84 through 90. I'm going to quote, starting at 84. Say, to whom belongs the earth and everyone in it, if you know? They will say, to God. Say, would you then take heed? Or how come you do not take heed? Say, who is the Lord of the heavens, the seven universes, the Lord with the great dominion? They will say, God. Say, how come you do not observe righteousness or do not observe God? Say, in whose hand is the kingship of everything, over everything? The one that can come to your help and does not need any help, if you know. They will say, God. Say, how come you have been bewitched, have gone astray? So, and in Surah 29, verse 61 says, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth and committed the sun and the moon, they will say, God. And then the verse ends by asking how come they deviated. In Surah 29, verse 63, it says, if you ask them who sends water from the sky to revive dead land, they will say, God. Say, praise be to God. How come most of them do not understand? So all these verses and many more throughout Quran tell us that people believe in God, Satan believes in God, but they are still going to hell. Now why? And the very important conclusion is, you do not believe in God unless you know God as He really is, with all His qualities. Namely, especially, that God runs everything, that God is doing everything. And this will shed a new light on our submission to God, our acceptance of whatever is happening to you personally or in the world, to anybody, to anything, to any country. We do not believe in God unless we believe that God is running everything. And at this point, I would like to suggest a dhikr for you, something for you to do. Every day, wherever you go, when you're driving or sitting or you have nothing to do, or even if you have something to do, I want this to dominate your life, even mentally, even when you're doing something. I want you to repeat always, God is running everything. God is running everything. This is your new dhikr, our new dhikr. Because the whole world will look different to you. When anything is happening that may turn you into an objector, not a submitter, this will remind you that God is doing everything and that you are objecting. As a believer, you have no business losing your temper, for example. You're not a believer if you lose your temper. And as I said at the beginning of the khutbah, I'm talking to you. Don't say he's talking to somebody else. I'm talking to you. Yes, you, Abdullah, Gatut, Muhtasham, Ahmed, other Ahmed, Frank, and so on. I am talking to you, every one of you. You have no business losing your temper, because this indicates you're objecting to something God is doing. We must know that God is doing everything. Even the things that Satan is doing, they are following God's law. A good example in the Quran is before the creation of Adam, God is telling the angels, I'm putting on earth a representative. Which in a nutshell says that God, of course, knew that Adam was going to be duped by Satan and will go down to earth. Because when Satan tricked Adam, God said, go down to earth, all of you. But this, before the creation of Adam, God is telling the angels, I'm going to place on the planet earth a representative, the human being. So even though Satan tempted Adam and Eve, God is doing everything, because everything is going in accordance with God's will. This is our new dhikr. When you're driving, when you're sitting, when you're doing anything, eventually it's going to happen mentally. Every cell in your body is going to say, God is running everything. And this is the true believer. This is the believer in God who will not go to hell. The majority of believers in God are going to hell because they do not believe that God is running everything. In Surah 8 verse 17, a classic example. It is not you who killed them. That was after the battle, one of the battles in early Islam. It is not you who killed them, it is God who killed them. It is not you who threw when you threw the arrow or the gun or whatever. It was God who threw. I mean, this is a very important conclusion, and this is why I think this is the most important khutbah I've ever given to you. This, I made a trip recently to Egypt, and everything that happened in that trip told me that we don't do anything. We do not do anything. God is doing everything. The timing of my arrival, the timing of my leaving. I mean, I get on the telephone and say, TWA, I'm changing my reservation from Tuesday to Thursday. I decided to change my... I didn't decide anything. I didn't change anything. Believe me, God is doing it. God is doing everything. In Surah number 12, again, the brothers of Joseph decided not to kill him, right? They decided not to kill him. They decided to throw him in the well. But before this happens, way before this, years before they make this so-called decision of theirs, Joseph sees the dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing before him. Which is his father, his mother, and his 11 brothers bowing before him. Something that was to happen after he's practically ruling Egypt as a man. So when the brothers met to kill him, the decision was already made. They could not decide to kill him. It was impossible. But here they are meeting, and they're taking votes. Shall we kill him? What shall we do with him? And then they decided, they think, not to kill him. God is running everything. And this is our new dhikr. Just keep telling yourself, God is running everything. Especially when you're at the brink of objecting to something or losing your temper. When you lose your temper, tell yourself, you must separate yourself from you as of now. When you lose your temper against a friend or a spouse or a brother or a sister or anybody in the street, you tell yourself, you're not a Muslim. You're objecting. Because God is running everything. Believe me, when your friend or your wife or your husband behaves in a certain way that gets in your nerves, God is doing it. And it's because you deserve it. So you have to get on yourself and correct yourself. And catch yourself objecting, not submitting to God. God runs everything. want to give you an example so you understand how God is running everything and how we have the freedom of choice. Suppose I had a temporary ability of traveling in the future, let's say for 1 week. I travel in the future and I see what happened to you, what decision you made. Okay, so I traveled all the way to next Friday and I saw exactly where you went, what kind of decision you made. Now back to this Friday, I'm giving you a choice to go to New York or to California. So I want to give you a choice to go to either New York or California. So I'm giving you a choice. You're going to freely choose California or New York for your trip. But I already know, see, because I traveled in time this 1 week and I know that you decided to go to California. So even though I'm giving you the freedom of choice, I know exactly what you're going to do and where you're going. But it is much more than this. I don't think we can really understand it. God runs everything. And this is the condition. This is a quality of God. And if you don't know this quality, you don't know God and you don't believe in God. And this is what the Quran means by all these verses. When Satan inflicts disasters, diseases, cancer on people, Satan is doing this in accordance with God's law. And we see this in the Quran. I remind you, for example, of the disciples of Jesus when they demanded a feast from the sky. And God said, okay, I'm going to send it down, but if any of you disbelieves, I will punish him severely, more than anybody that I ever punished. Now you know that the punisher will really be Satan, but God, this is God's law. When they disbelieve, they step out of God's kingdom, then Satan will inflict the damage, but God is doing everything. So even the actions of Satan are under God's control. God is running everything. God will not be a God if he wasn't running everything. So this is a quality of God that we must recognize. And we're going to commemorate it. This is in our own language, in English. And you drive your car and you say God is running everything. And you look at everything and you say God is running everything. Because this is the condition of belief in God. The Quran says very clearly, when something good happens to you, it is from God. When something bad happens to you, it is from you. But God is running everything. God created the fire. You can use it to cook a steak, from a raw steak to a delicious cooked steak, unless you like it raw. But you can also put your finger in that fire and burn your finger. So God created the fire to be in your service, but if you choose to put your finger in it and suffer, then this is from you, not from God. But it is God's law that made the fire as